You know exactly what you need to do. It's not vague, it's not confusing. God has already shown you. It could be a career change, a forgiveness you need to offer, a relationship you need to end, a difficult conversation you're postponing, a project you know is yours to start. You know. And yet, you don't do it. It's not laziness. You're busy, you're productive, you're doing 1,000 things. But you're not doing that one thing. And every night when the house falls silent and you're alone with your thoughts, that restlessness returns. It's not generic anxiety. It's specific. It's the dissonance of knowing and not obeying. And today you will understand why this wait, which seems prudent, is costing you more than any risk of acting. You will discover the brutal difference between waiting on God's timing and procrastinating out of fear disguised as wisdom. Because there's a kind of waiting that strengthens, that prepares, that matures. And there's another kind that corrodes, that paralyzes, that turns clarity into confusion. And most people confuse the two. They keep waiting for perfect conditions that never arrive, while paying a daily price in inner peace. The problem isn't that you'll miss the window, as if God operates on Black Friday sale deadlines. The problem is that living out of alignment has a cumulative cost that you feel in your body, mind, and spirit. Let's get straight to the symptom. You wake up tired even after sleeping 8 hours. It's not physical fatigue. It's that internal weight, as if you're carrying an invisible backpack full of stones. During the day, you function. You work, you solve problems, you fulfill responsibilities. But there's an underlying fatigue that never goes away. You try to explain it. Stress, a demanding routine, age. But it's not that. It's the energetic cost of living in internal contradiction. There's another symptom you might not have connected. Disproportionate frustration with small things.
Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who were tired of living in the fog, ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.
Someone interrupts you mid-sentence and you feel an irritation that doesn't make sense. Traffic makes you more nervous than it should. Superficial conversations exhaust you. You attribute this to impatience, a strong temper, bad days, but the root is deeper. When you're living below your calling, everything superficial becomes a trigger, because you know deep down that you're wasting time and energy on things that don't matter while postponing what truly does. And there's the most revealing symptom. You compulsively seek distractions. Netflix, social media, online shopping, anything to fill the internal silence. It's not entertainment, it's anesthesia. You're running away from the voice that speaks when the distractions stop. That voice that reminds you, you know what you need to do, why aren't you doing it? Studies from the Universidade de São Paulo on chronic procrastination show that postponing important tasks generates a vicious cycle of anxiety and avoidance. The brain interprets the postponed task as a threat, which increases discomfort, which increases avoidance. And this doesn't just happen with work deadlines, it happens with spiritual obedience. Researchers from the Pontificia Universidade Católica de São Paulo, studying cognitive dissonance, discovered that living in contradiction between declared values and practiced actions generates measurable psychological stress, with impacts on sleep quality, the immune system, and mental clarity. Now pay attention, because here the story starts to change. If you're recognizing these symptoms, give this video a like right now. This simple gesture helps me continue bringing content that confronts, not comforts. And it helps you mark this moment as a turning point. Because what follows will show you why you're waiting, and why this wait is costing you more than you imagine. There's a biblical figure who shows this with brutal clarity. Moses at the burning bush, Exodus 3. God appears to him, calls him by name, gives him a clear mission. Go, take my people out of Egypt. And what does Moses do? He starts negotiating. Who am I to go? God replies, I will be with you. Moses tries again, and if they ask me, what is your name? God gives him the name. Moses tries a third time, and what if they don't believe me? God gives signs. Moses tries a fourth. I'm not a good speaker. God says he will teach him. And finally, Moses spills the truth. Lord, send someone else. Look at the pattern. Moses didn't say no directly. He created a list of conditions that needed to be perfect before he obeyed. And each excuse seemed reasonable. He was indeed a fugitive in Egypt. He wasn't eloquent. The people might indeed doubt. But none of these logical reasons were the real cause. The cause was fear, and Moses disguised fear as prudence. The Hebrew word God uses when he finally confronts Moses is halak, which means to go or to walk. It's a verb of action, not planning. God didn't say, when you're ready, go. He said, go. Present tense, imperative. And here's the detail that changes everything. God never promised Moses he would be ready. He promised he would be with him. You are doing exactly what Moses did. You have a list of conditions that need to be perfect before you obey. When I have more money, then I'll change careers. When I feel stronger emotionally, then I'll have that conversation. When the circumstances are more favorable, then I'll take the step. And each condition seems reasonable, but it's fear disguised as prudence. There's another figure who shows the opposite, the first disciples, Matthew 4. Jesus is walking by the sea and sees two brothers, Peter and Andrew, fishing. He says one sentence, "Come, and I will make you fishers of men." And the text says, immediately they left their nets and followed him. There was no planning meeting, no cost-benefit analysis, no let's think about it and get back to you next week. The Greek word used here is eutheos, translated as immediately. It appears 51 times in the Gospel of Mark. It means without interval, without hesitation, without pausing to calculate. And this was not irresponsibility, it was recognition. They recognized true authority and responded with immediate obedience. Now comes the hard part. The real cause of your spiritual procrastination is not a lack of resources, bad timing, or unfavorable circumstances. It's that you're waiting to feel zero fear before obeying. You think faith is the absence of fear, so you wait until you have no fear. But faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is obedience in the presence of fear. Data from the Max Planck Institute on decision-making shows that the human brain overestimates the risks of change and underestimates the risks of inaction. You look at obedience and see all the bad scenarios that could happen, but you don't see the bad scenarios that are already happening because you're not acting. The internal erosion, the loss of spiritual authority, the gradual hardening of sensitivity to God's voice. Research from Fundação Getúlio Vargas on regret and well-being reveals that in the long term, people regret the actions they didn't take far more than the ones they did. The regret of inaction is deeper, more lasting, more corrosive, because you'll never know what could have been. And here's the truth that will set you free or offend you. God is not waiting for you to be ready. He's waiting for you to be willing. There's a huge difference. Being ready means having all the skills, all the resources, all the confidence. Being willing means, I don't have everything, but I'm going anyway because you told me to. The Greek word for spirit used in John 3 when Jesus speaks with Nicodemus is pneuma. It means breath, wind, respiration. Jesus says, the wind blows where it will, you hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it goes. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. Do you know what that means? The Spirit doesn't wait for you to have the complete plan. He blows, and you need to move. You don't control the direction. You respond to the breath. If you felt this breath, if you know exactly what the next step God is calling you to take is, type obey in the comments now. This word will function as a public declaration, a commitment that anchors you when the fear returns. And it will return. But the declaration remains. And as you type, pay attention to the next point, because here comes the crucial difference. How do you distinguish between waiting on God's timing and procrastinating out of fear. There are 3 diagnostic questions. First, have you received clarity about the direction? If God has already shown you what to do, but you're waiting for Him to show you again in a more comfortable way, that's procrastination. Waiting on God's timing is when you don't yet have clarity about the direction, so you wait with active expectation. Procrastinating is when you have clarity about the direction, but you're waiting to feel less fear. Second question, is your waiting drawing you closer to God or pushing you away? Genuine waiting on God's timing puts you in a posture of listening, humility, dependence. Procrastination puts you in a posture of avoidance, anxiety, distraction. Data from the Universidade Federal do Rio de Janeiro on spirituality and mental health shows that genuine contemplative practices reduce cortisol and increase mental clarity. Spiritual avoidance does the opposite. Third question, does your wait have a deadline or is it indefinite? Waiting on God's timing may not have an exact date, but it has movement. You are preparing, you are praying, you are positioned to obey when the door opens. Procrastination has no deadline or preparation. It's just perpetual postponement. Let me give you a practical example. You feel God is calling you to forgive someone. You've known this for months, but you're waiting to feel like forgiving before obeying. That's procrastination. Forgiveness isn't a feeling you wait for. It's a decision you make even without feeling like it. Waiting on God's timing would be, Lord, I don't know how to approach this person. I don't know if it's through direct conversation or a letter or silent prayer. Show me how. But if God has already shown you how and you're waiting to feel complete peace before acting, you are procrastinating. Now comes the practical solution. How do you get out of paralysis and into obedience, even with fear, even without all the answers? First, you identify the next concrete action, not the complete plan, the next action. If God has called you to change careers, the next action isn't to quit your job tomorrow. It might be to update your resume. It might be to talk to someone who works in the field you feel called to. Small, concrete, doable. Studies from Stanford University on habit formation show that small, consistent actions build momentum. Once in motion, it's easier to continue than to start. The biggest obstacle is initial inertia. So you break the inertia with an action so small that fear doesn't have a chance to paralyze you. Second, you create accountability. Obedience in secret is easier to postpone. Tell someone you trust, God has shown me this, and I'm going to do that by such and such a date. Hold me accountable. Data from the American Psychological Association on public commitment reveals that people who declare their intentions to others are 65% more likely to follow through. Third, you separate faith from feeling. You don't wait to feel faith, you act in obedience, and faith comes in the process. Hebrews 11:8 says, Abraham obeyed by going out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. He went out not knowing where he was going. He didn't have the complete map. He had the command and the promise, and he went. The Greek word used there for obeyed is hupakuo, which literally means to hear under. It's not casual listening. It's listening in a posture of submission with the intention to act. Fourth, you reframe failure. If you take the step and it goes wrong, you haven't lost, you've learned. God honors obedience even when the outcome isn't what you expected. But He doesn't honor inaction disguised as prudence. Research from Unicamp on learning and resilience shows that people who view mistakes as data, not as character flaws, have a 70% greater capacity for adjustment. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Every video I bring is built to equip you spiritually, not to entertain you. It's long-term formation. The red button down there, press it and activate the bell, because the next video will show you something crucial. What God does with the mess you make when you finally obey, the reversal you didn't expect. You'll discover that imperfect obedience is infinitely more valuable than perfect inaction. But before we get there, you need to understand the cumulative cost of spiritual procrastination. It's not that God punishes you for waiting, it's that you lose spiritual authority. The Hebrew word for spiritual authority is samak, which means to lean on, to rest weight upon. Authority comes from historical obedience. Every time God speaks and you act, you build a track record of trust, and that track record becomes the foundation for future calls. But when God speaks and you postpone, you erode that foundation, not instantly, gradually. It's like a crack in the wall, small at first, imperceptible. But if you ignore it, it expands. And one day you wake up and realize you don't hear God's voice with the same clarity. Not because he stopped speaking, because you've created layers of insensitivity through repeated disobedience. Studies from the HeartMath Institute on heart coherence show that repeated decisions out of alignment with core values create physiological incoherence. Heart and brain become desynchronized, which reduces intuition, clarity, and discernment ability. Translate that spiritually. Repeated spiritual procrastination desynchronizes you from God's voice. Let me show you another figure that illustrates this. Jonah. Book of Jonah, chapter 1. God gives a clear command. Arise, go to Nineveh, and call out against it. Jonah arises, but goes in the opposite direction. He gets on a ship to Tarshish, as far away from Nineveh as possible. And the text says something revealing. But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it. The Hebrew word yarad appears 3 times in this verse, and it means to go down. Jonah went down to Joppa, went down into the ship, went down into the hold. Disobedience is always a descent. You don't stay in the same place. You go down, spiritually, emotionally, relationally. And what happens? A storm. The ship nearly sinks. Jonah is thrown into the sea, swallowed by a fish, spends 3 days in darkness, in rottenness, isolated. And there, finally, he prays, and God saves him. And Jonah goes to Nineveh, and preaches, and the whole city repents. But look at the cost. Jonah could have preached at the first command. He would have avoided the storm, the fish, the 3 days of darkness. Nineveh would have repented the same way, because God had already planned it. The difference is that Jonah carried unnecessary scars. You are doing the same. God has already shown you Nineveh, but you're buying a ticket to Tarshish, thinking you can negotiate, postpone, do it your way. And maybe you don't have a literal storm, but you have an internal storm. That restlessness, that fatigue, that feeling of being out of orbit. It's the cost of disobedience. It's not punishment. It's consequence. The Greek word parakaleo appears in Acts when Paul is being called to go to Macedonia. It means to call to one's side, to summon. It has urgency, it has closeness, it has relationship. God is not giving you orders from a distant throne. He is calling you to his side for a shared mission. And when you postpone, you're not just missing the mission, you're losing the intimacy of the process. Here's what I need you to understand. Obedience doesn't guarantee comfort, it guarantees alignment. And alignment brings peace that transcends circumstances. Data from the Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais on well-being and purpose shows that people who live aligned with core values report 80% higher life satisfaction, even when facing greater objective difficulties. It's not about having an easy life. It's about having a coherent life. Now let me give you the final image that will consolidate everything. Imagine a GPS. You type in the destination, and the GPS plots the route, but you decide not to follow it. You turn where you shouldn't, ignore the instructions. The GPS doesn't abandon you. It recalculates. Make the next U-turn. You ignore it again. It recalculates again. But each recalculation adds time, adds distance, adds fuel spent. God is like that. He doesn't abandon you when you procrastinate. He recalculates, opens new routes, but the destination he had for you on the direct path might take years longer on the indirect path. Not because he's punishing you, because you're making choices that add unnecessary difficulty. The Hebrew word derek means path or way. It appears in Proverbs 3:6. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. To acknowledge is not just to know he exists, it's to obey when he speaks. And when you obey, the paths become straight. It doesn't mean they become easy, it means they become clear. So here's the question you need to answer honestly. What is the next action God has already shown you that you are postponing? It doesn't have to be grand. It could be apologizing. It could be taking that exam you're avoiding. It could be calling that person. It could be starting that project. Small or large, it doesn't matter. What matters is, you know, and you are waiting. And the wait is costing you peace. It's costing you clarity. It's costing you spiritual authority. Not dramatically, not all at once, but drop by drop, day by day. And one day you'll wake up and realize that years have passed and you're still in the same place, with the same restlessness because you never took that first step. Share this video with someone who is postponing obedience. This message might be the push they need. And don't miss the next one, because I'm going to show you what God does with the mess you make when you finally obey imperfectly. Spoiler, He doesn't reject you, He refines. Until then.
Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who were tired of living in the fog, ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.